Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Tom and some of you might know me as Bowl of Salmon on Instagram. I'm a photographer, a videographer, and on this channel I just like to talk about watches. Today we are welcoming back Lorca for the release of their second album, the Model No2 chronograph. I'll jump right into it. What immediately stood out to me when I opened up the package is how this is just, well, 100% obviously a Lorca watch, with Model No. 1 being a vintage inspired GMT and Model No2 being a chronograph. It's not a copy-paste design, it introduces plenty of different design elements, but the brand aesthetic is just immediately recognizable. Lorca was founded by New York-based recording artist Jesse Merchant, and to quote Jesse, he just makes the watches that he would want to own. If you want to learn more about Lorca and their Model No. 1, check out a previous video that I did, I'll leave the link down in the description below. When this video launches, the Model No2 should be available in 3 colors. There's an all-black version with a satin black dial and black subdials. There's a golden grey dial with silver subdials, and while I haven't seen this in person, it looks rather interesting as the dial takes on shades of grey or brown depending on the light. I had ample studio time with the silver dial, and that will be the focus of today's video. Mind, this is a prototype dial, so the one thing that I have to point out is that the subdials on the final version will have the same snailing that can be found on the other dials too. On the Model No. 1, I found it impossible to choose a favorite, but maybe I had a slight preference for the silver dial. I know it says silver dial, but the color can be best described as champagne, as the silver usually shows these warm hues. The most eye-catching element on this watch is undoubtedly the guilloche style bezel, a bezel execution that we don't see much, the Rolex chronograph Thunderbird being the only other example I can come up with. So you're not gonna find a tachymeter scale on this chronograph, but instead it uses a 12-hour birotational bezel that can easily be used to track a second time zone. And honestly, this is just a lot easier than fiddling about with an extra GMT hand. One of those very cool details about this bezel is that the 12-hour markers are debossed, so they protrude from the guilloche, and the guilloche runs through the numbers uninterrupted, something that provided quite a challenge to machine and suddenly makes the chronograph looks to have a sloppy execution. Where Model No. 1 split opinions with the choice of font and the alignment of the font on the bezel execution on Model No. 2 might again divide opinions. This is one of those features or executions that you will either love or hate. I think it absolutely looks gorgeous and makes this watch stand out from the competition. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Staying true to the mid-century styling, we have a small 37mm diameter case. It actually measures 38mm including the bezel. The case thickness is 11.6mm. But including the sapphire glass, the total thickness measures 14.1mm. Lug to lug is a very wearable 46mm, and the lug width is 20mm, so you will be able to throw on your favorite leather straps. The first reaction or questions I got about this watch when I posted on Instagram were aimed at the sizing. Does it feel thick? Well, no, it doesn't at all feel that to me, but it's personal preference, I guess. The Model No. 2 just has a bit more body on my wrist, partly due to the case size being that 1mm larger, but also because of the chronograph pushers that make it look like there's more watch on the wrist, so I'd say it wears a little bigger than the dimensions suggest. For me, the thickness of the watch is defined by the case and not necessarily by the double-domed sapphire crystal, and it's that crystal that gives it a lot of character. My tag glass box feels like a thicker watch, even when it's not on paper. So in terms of dimensions and proportions, nothing puts me off about this. I totally wear it, and if you like the aesthetic of the GMT but maybe you felt it was too small for you, don't write it off as too small or too thick. Just try it on first. Lorca didn't only spend all the time into the bezel of the watch. The design of the dial got a lot of love too. The cursive Lorca font leads the dial at 12 o'clock with the model name printed horizontally just below the center. At the bottom of the dial we find the word Swiss made, as these watches are made and assembled in Switzerland with final quality checks done at the New York headquarters. We have the raised applied hour markers around the dial and the spearhead shaped marker at 12 o'clock. On the minute track at 369 we find these ball bearings, kind of markers. The Dauphine style hour and minute hands are polished, and just like the indices they are filled with superluminova. There is a big chrono hand where the counterbalance at the end matches the spearhead shape of the 12 o'clock marker. Everything is a bit tone on tone, so because of the lack of contrast between the handset and the dial, the legibility isn't always immediate, so you will usually find yourself trying to catch some reflection on the hands to tell the time in the blink of an eye. Not really an issue if, like me, you just like staring at your watch. It's a 3-register chronograph, so there's 3 subdials. Again, this is a prototype dial and the final version will have the circular pattern. There is a running seconds at 9 o'clock, a 30-minute register at 3 o'clock, and a 12-hour register at 6. They each have their own identity and a different choice of numeral placement. The quirky one of the bunch is the 6 o'clock subdial. The 3 appears upside down, and with the dots next to the 6 and 9, there appears to be 2 6s on the subdial. But if you tilt your head 90 degrees left or right in the direction of the 3 or 9, everything suddenly looks upright. In between the pump pushers to operate the chronograph sits a proud 7mm pull-push crown that is easy to manipulate. Since this is a manual wind movement, you will be interacting with that crown a lot. The finishing of the case is mostly satin brushed with polished chamfers on the lugs and case back. The watch is powered by a Sellita SW510 manual wind movement and provides 63 hours of power reserve. The Swiss movement has the highest soigné elaboré finish with a gold engraved logo, yet there is no open case back. Instead, Lorca has again chosen for a very pure minimalist approach of the case back. The watch is regulated to run within a plus or minus 5 seconds per day accuracy. The whole package has 100 meters of water resistance. Again, this is meant to be a go anywhere, do anything kind of watch. Sure, it has a vintage look, but without the flimsy feel and with the robustness of a modern watch. I realize I don't nearly talk enough about the bracelet when I talk about watches. I guess I'm more of a dial kind of guy when filming watches too. In terms of look, the bracelet is complementary with the overall design of the watch. It has a 9-row construction with plenty of spacing between the beads of rice type links. It articulates nicely and it really hugs the wrist. There is a good taper running from 20mm at the case to 16mm at the double push button deployed clasp. The clasp has a push button quick adjust and definitely feels sturdy enough. In a lot of cases the quick adjust can feel a bit jingly, especially when extended, but I'm happy to report that this is not the case on this watch. The clasp is definitely not compact, but it's not too long either. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is a great second album that clearly outlines the brand vintage aesthetic. There are influences from classics, but nothing feels derivative or anywhere near homage. And that is to me the greatest accomplishment of this watch and Lorca as a brand. It manages to carve a niche within a micro-brand space where so many don't have the originality anymore, and perhaps where other brands struggle a lot longer to find their identity. To me, Lorca makes original watches that feel solid with a vintage appeal. They look super stylish and they can be worn in all situations, from being your daily beater when traveling, to office days or to more formal events. Anyway, that's it for this video. Looking forward to your thoughts on this. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, give the video a like, hit those comments for some interaction. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.